You are watching Access LaPorte County, Channel 97. Coming up next is the July 14th, 2023 meeting of the Long Beach Building Commission. You can find more information for this meeting by visiting www.accesslaportecounty.org.
This is the regularly scheduled meeting of the Long Beach Building Commission, July 14th, 2023. Says 2022 on the notes, so we'll correct that. We'll call the meeting to order at 1 o'clock. Attendant or roll call, Larry Wall here, Bob Lemay here, John Coker here, Ken Posner on Zoom. Ken, can you have to unmute yourself. Unmute yourself, Ken. I don't see him on there. All right, well, just mark him not here. Joy Schmidt? Here. Pete Piper? Here. Joe Jagman. Joe is not here. He told me he was not going to be able to make it. Lou Melton. Yes. First up is the approval of the minutes from the previous meeting. That would be the June meeting. Everybody got those this week. Any additions or corrections to those minutes?
Move to approve.
Larry, anybody like to accept?
Before you go on, Ken, for him to vote on anything, we have to be able to see him. So I don't know if he's got to hit the video button or what, but we're not.
Just maybe just can't vote.
Is he on there?
I do not see his name up there. There's an iPad 6, which I have no idea who that person is. There's a Dave Warnke, Larry Wall, and somebody called Lex.
Ken, if you're on there, you have to unmute yourself and then tell us you're there. I guess we just go on. Okay. Motion by Joy to accept the minutes. Is there a second?
Second.
Bob May. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Are we okay to do that, Chris? Voice?
Yes, unless,
Okay.
so let's try to participate in that.
Commissioners report for June, not April. We got a lot of mistakes on here. 21 permits with construction costs $2,819,213, which generated fees of $3,308. We received 165 calls on permits and or information requests. We responded to or sent 310 emails. We reviewed and approved registrations, research and inspections on MS4 outcalls. We had 2 floodplain webinars with the FEMA. Lou, you got your site visits?
Please, you take site visits and 21 inspections.
Okay. Next up is old business, the fine structure on the deck.
Yeah. It was approved and just needs to be published for notice before it takes. So I'll just, and I will follow up with the building commission specifically allude to that structure is applicable in any citations. So right now it's status quo because we have to publish and there's a time frame. So I will follow up with a summary to the building commission and like I said specifically.
Okay, beach stairs. Bob, a couple of people asked about this. Joy was kind enough to write the letter. We all approved the letter. I have not sent it out. I need to get with Chris. I did walk down to several of the stops. A lot of the beach stairs in question are actually covered with sand now. So, I'm not quite sure what you guys want to do. We want to, Lou and I, or Lou and Bob, and somebody, just walk down from 31 down to 13 and re-inventory those that are still a problem and send the letters out. I think that's one option. The other option is we send the letters out to everybody that we had before, but there are several of those that I know are covered up with sand. Anybody have any discussion about that?
Or whether they're covered in sand or not, I mean, it would still apply to our ordinance, right? I mean, they need to be taken out. Just because they're covered in sand now doesn't mean they will be down the road, so I don't know that covered in sand makes a difference.
So it is the thought that we would still send the letters to everybody on our list.
I think so.
All right.
And then through the inventory as well, it's huge.
Yeah, that's a microphone.
Just so you're not.
All right, we'll send the letters to everybody on the list. And, Lou, why don't you and I get together and just walk from stem to stern, and maybe we'll get Mark to let us use one of his gizmos and go from stem to stern and, and take a look at it.
It takes two people, you know, it's something front by the draft and back end for what's, stairs.
Yeah, I'd be happy to help out too.
Okay. Well, how about Lou and Bob?
Yeah, we did it before, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, I think, and Mark, I don't know, does one of you guys have to drive them? Okay, they can drive that. All right, well, that makes it easier on you guys.
Yeah, what, we got ATV.
It's an ATV with the dump box in the back, and so you guys could just take that and make a lot easier.
Actually, yeah, Lou could be down there with the ATV. I'll ride him on a quick bike. We'll be good.
Okay,
Yeah, that
great.
Yeah, makes sense to me.
All right. Thank you. MS4 requirements. The August meeting for the Northern Indiana, there's an acronym for it, but I'm just going to tell you what it is. It's the Northern Indiana members of the MS4 area is at Long Beach on August. I forgot what it is, but I'll look it up. We're working on the state audit. We had one meeting this week, and we're in pretty good shape. That audit is going to take place on July 24th, and the audit is going to take place either here in this room or in the council chambers, or we're going to do it started at the town garage. We had, as I said earlier, we had a meeting with Reggie this week with Mark, Tom Dolph, myself, and Reggie. We went over everything that's required. We're in good shape. At least Reggie thinks we're in good shape. There's a few more pieces of information that we need to get together to make sure we have for, so that we will be in compliance with our permit. Any questions on that?
Now, is an ordinance going to be written? There's talk at some time about Reggie writing an ordinance or parts of an ordinance, or is all that been done already?
So we have an ordinance that was given to us, and Chris, I guess I'm going to ask you to chime in if I'm making a mistake here. The state provided us with an ordinance, and I don't recall if it was through Reggie or if it came directly from the state. Chris brought that from, ostensibly from the building commission to the APC, and then it was voted on by the council. Is that correct, Chris? No.
I think you're confusing the floodplain. I think that this year, the ordinance, the MS4 is one that needs to still be.
Okay.
There is, to answer your question, Pete, there is a form of ordinance that generally most municipalities, governmental entities are following. So that's, as far as I know, still on your to-do list. I think you're combining the floodplain, the flood zone.
Okay, and do we have that ordinance?
I have not been in this process because Larry had his training and then with Reggie coming on board, but that is on the to-do list. So when we do that, and when it gets passed my way, make sure that we send it to the building commission for comments, because it'll go through the APC, it'll go to the town council as well.
Okay,
Yeah, my understanding was Reggie was gonna give us a sample ordinance, and I don't know if that ever happens.
okay, I'll call her. I don't know if I'll get to her today, but I'll get with her by, Monday afternoon and make sure that she gets that to us. And I think you're right, Chris, I got it mixed up with the floodplain. The MS4 is a federal program that goes through FEMA and then IDEM to the state. And it's required, I know I've said this before, but I'll just go through it so everybody understands. It used to be that MS4 was controlled, the MS4, including the town of Long Beach, was through LaPorte County. And I don't know exactly when, but sometime in the last couple of years, the state changed the rules. And now all these small towns, just like Long Beach, Potawatomi Park, Michiana Shores, Trail Creek, Michigan City, LaPorte, unincorporated LaPorte County or LaPorte County, are all their own MS4s. And what that means is that we are now, as the town of Long Beach, responsible for enforcement of all of the MS4 rules. The ordinance is required. It's actually required by the federal and state government and IDEM. So I will get with Reg, gets a copy of that to us so that we can get working on the APC and getting that adopted. The only change that we talked about in a couple of meetings, Bob, I know you were there, I think Mark was there, I'm not sure if you were there, is that in general, and I might lean on Jeff here, but in general, any project that is over an acre requires that they submit their own, what is called an NOI or a notice of intent, and then a SWIP, which is a stormwater pollution prevention. Then that is approved by the IDEM and published.
So, yeah.
Okay, then that is published and then it comes back to us as published and then that's acceptable. The only difference would be as to whether or not the town, in my understanding, is whether or not the town wanted to say that every projects under an acre would have to go through the permit process. And I want to make sure everybody understands across the board, no matter what size your project is, you have to conform to MS4 regulation. The over 1 acre and above situation is you have to have your own permit. The Captain's Walk project is a project that is encompassed in that. That's the only project right now in our town that is over an acre. So they're going through that right now. Jeff from HOTS has reviewed all that stuff. So, but we do have to adopt the ordinance. The only change I think in that ordinance is whether we wanted to go below an acre. To be honest with you, I don't know that we should do that, but I suppose that's up for discussion at some point in time.
So where's the permit come from if you're over an acre? Is that state or from MS4 people or us or who?
Well, that permit, it goes to the IDEM. And then they approve it in a SWIP, the Stormwater Pollution Prevention Plan. It's on the drawings for Captain's Walk. It shows how they're going to handle that particular job has, there's wetlands, or not wetlands, it's all perimeter that. So what happens is they have to have a plan as to how they're going to prevent runoff from that job going into the water, which is Lake Blair. We also have to have, they can't take and dump water from that project just into that lake. It has to be controlled. Kind of simple things, what are called BMPs or best management practices. Concrete trucks. I'm sure everybody's seen concrete trucks dumping when they're done pouring their concrete. They clean out, they clean out their chute and whatever. And they, they'll just go to the neighbor's yard in the woods next to the house. You can't do that anymore. Access and egress from construction sites. And Tom Dolphin is very familiar with this, where people are working and they're constantly running sand and dirt and mud onto the street. So there are best management practices to prevent that. And covering up spoils. When you activate, you have a spoil pile, that's the excavation. If it's not going to be used within 7 days, it either has to be seeded or covered. So there's a whole book of things. And you have to do that on any project, but on a project over an acre, you have to prove to the IDEM that you have sufficient methods in place to control it. That makes sense?
Just lastly here, what constitutes an MS4 meeting? Is it just Long Beach personnel or?
No, it's the community of MS4s, which would be Munster. I don't even know all of them, to be honest with you. It's Tripp, Long Beach, Potawatomi Park, Michigan City, LaPorte County, unincorporated LaPorte County. I don't know. I mean, Reggie said, I can't remember exactly what she said, about 30 people maybe. So you're probably representing 20 of those.
So we just get started on this thing here and we're already under an audit.
Our permit is a 5-year permit. And that permit was submitted, was due on April 1st of this year. And we submitted it and it's proper and it's been accepted. They do a lot. So that's what the audit is. They're going to make sure their inspections, the town does, and I do, are documented. And if there's any problems with complaints that somebody may have, that those are documented and they're taken care of. That's what the audit's about.
Larry, can I add a little to that? Just for the public, and because this is new and it's evolving, because of the way that it used to be structured and it was through the county with all of these municipalities, and now each is responsible. These audits, it is an audit they are looking into, but downstate is not. They want to see progress. They recognize that every town is behind, but quite frankly, some things have been required for years. The difference is each town is having to shoulder this burden of the expense and doing all of these things. So the audit is not a negative in terms of it is standard. It's right now they are trying to check to make sure and want to see progress, but they are not hammering anybody. The other communities that I'm aware of the situation and probably much further behind where Long Beach is. So it'll be an ongoing thing, but I think that Long Beach is by far ahead of the curve from a lot of the smaller. So again, it's a big undertaking. I don't know how a lot of towns are going to be able to do it without getting some funding somewhere.
Yeah, Mark and Bob were at the meeting, and I think that Reggie seemed to think that we're in pretty good shape. We have our paperwork done. Some of the things that we need, she's going to send to us so that we have it and do the paperwork done before the audit. But I guess I didn't understand what you were asking. This isn't punitive. It's not that we did something wrong. It's just a course of business. They want to make sure it's being followed. I think they have a camera at your house making sure you're doing your stuff. Anything else on MS4? Coastal resiliency groups. I had a preliminary meeting with the Lake Michigan the DNR, the Lake Michigan Coastal Group in the DNR. We have a board meeting next week, which will be my first. And I found out, Pete, the group that we had the meeting with and that is going to do the master plan for us, they are under contract and working through NERC. So it's under this group that we are now, my participation involved in. So they report ultimately to the DNR.
But they're still going to do what we asked them, right?
Yes, they're still going to do the master plan for us. And
you know when that's going to be done?
they told us they thought they would be with us by the end of July. And they were pretty good when they got with us for the March date. But I found out at our preliminary board meeting that they have $500,000 in grants for certain one item, and they have about $300,000 for another item. So that tells me that what they were telling us is what they're going to present to us. We would probably want to apply for a grant to accomplish some of those things. Next up is the building department software. That implementation is going forward. We posted a link to, it's not fully functional link because we're not ready for that yet, but contractually, we had to post the link within 90 days. That is now on our website. But it is not functional. We're not using it to have people register, nor are we using it for permits at this point in time. And the training is moving forward. We had a hiatus for about 3 weeks around the holiday, but we're back to weekly training. Any questions or comments on that? Okay, what do we need to do, Ken, with Ken?
So we've got the solar ordinance. Ken gave us a copy of that. I think everybody here should have seen that. And so basically we need to discuss it and then make a recommendation to APC, which is going to be meeting on Monday. So anybody here have any comments on what they saw or questions for Ken? Otherwise, I have a couple. One is that we need to make it clear that this new ordinance is going to replace ordinance 154.080 to 154.08 and 154.081. And then on page 2, it said the size shall be limited to 2 megawatts. Ken, this is totally out of my wheelhouse. Where'd we get that from? Is that?
That's the maximum or the general limitation that a utility puts on a residential customer. So 2 megawatts is pretty much the limitation as far as output. They don't want you putting out too much more where they owe you money. So they limit the residents how much they can actually produce. That's a pretty standard level for residential solar systems.
Okay, and then one other question I had was second page again under B setback. It said ground-mounted solar systems, ground-mounted solar electric systems may not extend into the side yard or rear setback when oriented minimum design tilt except as permitted in the zoning code. So right now we're saying only into the backyards. And we have a lot of like corner properties and things that are going to be limited. Do we want to let people go in the side yard? I don't know.
Yeah, that's a subject for discussion. Also, Bob, you mentioned the EV charging from solar. I'd like to put together a little information burst for the members to get familiar with that aspect of the solar. That seems to be a developing topic, and more people are getting on board. Most of that equipment relative to solar charging for EV vehicles is plug and play. It's cord ended. So really, there's not too much governing on that outside of the fact that the equipment should be UL approved. The initial governing is in the installation of the EV charging receptacle. So I'd like to present some more information to the board and get them up to speed on the equipment that's available, and we could further discuss that afterwards. Also, the setback requirements and so forth, that was pretty much in the first redo of the, not redo, but the first part of the solar ordinance. I didn't touch that at all. So that's, I assume, something that was discussed and put together before I got involved with it. So if there's any further investigation or discussion on setbacks and so forth, we should have that discussion as well.
Larry, for Ken's benefit, Ken, this is Chris. The APC is set to consider this at Monday's meeting. And so if you have more to add, and the process for them, to the extent you're not aware, is if they consider it and they like what you've drafted and don't have any changes, they could conceivably set it for a public hearing the following month. And then that leads to process and goes before the council. So if you think that there's more to be had, it might be worth timing wise so that they don't go through the time expense, and not that I want to add meetings to anybody's plates, at some point, maybe it's your presentation can be to the APC, or it could be a workshop for the building commission and the APC. So I don't know, whatever you think is best, but in terms of process, costs, so that we don't go through and publish and go through a public hearing, I think whatever you suggest, because that's really the main thing that is on the APC's agenda next week. And if you feel that there's more education to be had, it might be wise to scrap that until we're ready to present it to the APC.
Yeah, Larry, Chris, I'm sorry. I totally agree. Since I initially put that together, there was not a heavy focus or more focus on the EV relationship with solar. So I did some more homework after I had submitted the initial draft, and it did say draft on it, subject to change. So until we get the draft off of that document and have a full-fledged ordinance, I think we should hold back on pushing it up the ladder, so to speak. If it takes another month or 2 months, does that hurt anybody to get it tweaked to where it's viable?
We have one in place now, so which it mirrors what they suggest, much like we were talking a canned or suggested form from the state. So right now there is one in place. I know that we have asked for feedback based on your draft. So there was nothing that's moving forward in terms of getting approved, but it's one step closer. So, my recommendation is we put the brakes on that so that we're not wasting time, money, effort on all of those things until we have, because I know Dr. May has asked building commission for comments, asked town council members and brought it up at the last meeting for comments, as well as APC. And I haven't seen a whole lot of response of their reaction. So, again, I just want to make sure that you're using time and, resources the proper way so that we're not doing this. Because there's a lot of process to changing that part, with changing zoning code. It's not just one meeting.
Other than EV, is there anything else that's going to change this ordinance? That was the big thing, right?
Right. That's I wanted to make sure we had that included and we understood what we're dealing with in terms of PV for EV, if you will. And some people, that's the only reason they would want PV is to charge their electric vehicle. They don't want to sell it back to the utility or anything. So like I said, that's all pretty much cord-ended, plug and play. I just want to get the board and others concerned up to speed on that with some of the equipment, what it looks like. And I'd like to put out I'm forgetting the word. Get them up to speed on what's, yeah, okay. So give me a couple weeks to get a little presentation together that I could put out to the members, okay?
Our electric vehicle charging it doesn't really interface with the solar power, except that you have to put in a 240 outlet so you can hook up your EV charger. So as far as I can tell, EVs and the rise in EVs is going to simply be a reason why more and more people are going to want to use solar power. You want to charge your car for free,
Yeah.
I don't know that it necessarily affects this, except to make people need to use it more often. You understand what I'm saying? Because I have an EV and I just installed a 240. I had installed a 240, permitted by the way. And other than, right now I've got to use NIPSCO's power. But if I put in a solar or some other kind of, or a roof or ground mounted system, it would simply be cheaper and make it more likely that people are going to use it. But again, I don't know that it affects what we're doing with this ordinance. Do you agree with that, or do you think there's some other reason why we need to reconsider?
Well, let's take for example somebody that uses that EV for commutes to work, conducts their business during the day. Well, that's when the sun's out and you're not capturing that power since you don't have it tied back to the utility. So you lose that EV capability. What they have now are battery banks, the lithium iron phosphate and lithium ion. They have battery packs made for storing power during the day. And then at night, when you get home from work or doing your errands or whatever, you plug it in and you draw that power down off of the power pack that you collected all day. If you don't get the full charge, it's a rainy or cloudy day or something, then you still have to basically top the EV charge off with purchase power from the grid. So
that makes sense. Yep. One other thing was on page 3, special requirements. It talked about you needed to have all residential ground mounted systems shall have an AC alternating current disconnect switch near the utility meter. I guess my other concern is that the homeowner, when they put in this, they need to notify the fire department so the fire department knows where to find it.
yes.
That's all I had. So I guess let's hold off on this, if that's okay.
Sure. Yeah, I think before we turn this, the mechanics are that's for somebody else to deal with. But I'm concerned about the placement of these systems, the number of panels that would be required, and that means setting them in the side yard and also the height of the panels. Does anybody else have considerations about that? I mean, these can be 15 feet tall ground mounted, is that right?
Yeah, that's that maximum tilt.
Before we go further, my suggestion is, this is already before the APC. My suggestion is, and then Dr. Renee has sent it to various boards, is that somehow, because the building commission is starting this suggestion, is that you come up with a concerted proposal, suggestion that you want to pass to take it into Pete's comments, everybody's comments, questions. Because it's already getting pretty convoluted, and Ken wants to put together a presentation, which will help educate those with the APC that aren't familiar, and you guys get in the weeds on these things, but that if everybody could look at it, make a suggestion, and then decide what's going to get presented to the APC, because they are already looking at this, but some of the things you're talking about might be some substantial changes from what was already there.
All right, how about this? How about is this the only thing before the APC on Monday?
Yeah, I think
Can we cancel that?
I'd be good with that.
Okay,
Well,
so
sorry, it's a little bit selfish, but there's another item or two that are pending, and we're trying to coordinate so that we don't have to advertise once for multiple public hearings.
Right.
So there is a method to the madness a little bit too.
Yeah.
So can we set a workshop sometime after this meeting so that we can all get together? Can we do that with the APC so that there's?
Do whatever you like, and just, that's good for me.
All right, why don't we do that? Bob,
Yeah.
is that acceptable?
He can tell us when works for him, because he's got to do some research.
Yeah, all right, Ken, well, will you let us know, maybe later today, by email, what you think your time frame is to be able to put together what you want to basically be a polished ordinance? And, if you give us that time frame, then I would ask everybody on the building commission to send their concerns to Ken so that we can put it into one ordinance and then meet with the APC or send it before is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine with me. Probably need at least a week, safely 2 weeks to put something together. I'm out of town right now, and I'll be back a week from today, so I could get on that.
I'm not asking you to commit right now, but just send an email out to everybody so that you give us basically a deadline of, hey, this is when we're going to be done with this, so that everybody can voice their concerns to you. We can get it in a post up document and get it off. As Chris mentioned, it's not like we're unprotected. We already have an ordinance in place, so this is just dialing that up. Okay.
Larry, one other point, I think I discussed a little bit with Bob on the phone Monday, is how we treat the coverage of the solar panels on the ground. How does that affect, or does it really affect the coverage for the lot? Does that go against the lot coverage? Because what I see happening is most people will opt to go with ground-mounted units instead of the roof-mounted because of the engineering and all the additional cost of doing roof-mounted units, whereas people would probably prefer to have the ground-mounted unit. Well, then the question comes, do we get into a land coverage or percent coverage increase to the homeowners? If we're going to encourage solar, I don't think that should come into consideration, or we shouldn't be adding more coverage to the property owner property. That's my opinion.
Okay, I think
It's something you guys should talk about, or we should talk about.
right. I think that was Pete's point. So we need to do that outside of the meeting and just get everything so that it moves back and forth between the members of the building commission and you. Then we can get a polished document together. And then at the next meeting, we can send it off and get it scheduled for the APC. Okay? Great, thanks. 1612 Indianapolis. We've been back and forth. Joy and I are working with Chris on the resolution. We think we've got it nailed down to two situations, but we have to come together. I think Chris has suggested on a couple of occasions that we meet with face-to-face with you and the other attorney. Is that it, or fill me in?
Well, we've mandated, and Joy and I have talked, and she's provided some options to get this thing off center. It's an oddity that we have resolution of pending litigation, and we have a client that's paid into a trust account, and we need to give everybody relief before we're back into the litigation mode. So that is where it is you and I need to bring it across the finish line.
Okay.
Opposing counsel, like I said, Joy has laid those out and they've made a counter or an inquiry with regard to those, so.
I did notice this week, they finally put up their railing around there, so, and they didn't put the railing around the new addition, so maybe that's the route they're gonna go.
Okay. All right, well then, we'll get together, we'll make sure that this is done before the next one. Next up is the Captain's Walk property. The first item that was sent in, I think it was late February, is a land disturbance permit. Jeff writes here from Haas. I'm gonna hopefully paraphrase or kind of summarize what's happened on that end. At our request, Jeff and Haas, through Haas and Associates, Jeff through Haas and Associates, reviewed the stormwater pollution prevention plan, and the Jeff has at this point in time said that, or set off, I can't, what is it called, Jeff?
Notices.
You have to tell them we are,
I'm sorry. Jeff Wright, Hassan Associates. We reviewed the plans for the land disturbing permit. That comes in two parts. One is the MS4 part, and then the other part is your ordinance to have approval before land disturbing activities occur. We reviewed the MS4 plans in according to the IDM checklist, the components that need to be on there. We've done that. We prepared the checklist. We issued that to the architect, and we wrote the notice of sufficiency that their plan requirements have been met and will satisfy IDM. Those two pieces, along with the erosion control plans themselves, will be sent to IDEM through their online portal. They'll upload those documents to IDEM. At some point later, IDEM will respond with a permit, and that's the IDEM part. The project, Yellow Bear Farms, Captain, they're here seeking your approval, I think, at this point to proceed with the land disturbing portion of the ordinance part on your side of it. There were a number of engineering details that it's complicated stuff. A lot of peat, you're aware of it. We've gone through those details. The two primary details were the peat and the proximity of the water to the footings, pools, anything that's anywhere near below ground. So we went through those details. The peat actually turns out to be the easier component because they're taking it all out, bringing in fresh fill and setting. They did some regrading from the original set of plans that were submitted in order to make sure that the footings were like up out of the water. And so we've gone through the engineering, and we've gone through, like I mentioned, the MS4 plans. The MS4 plans again are approved, they're ready. They will be, they have to advertise in the newspaper that tells the community that yes, we're going to comply with MS4. The newspaper will respond with an affidavit. That document, along with the documents that we reviewed, those will all be submitted to IDM. So I think it's, I can't really make a recommendation. I can just say that if you're so inclined in terms of the engineering and as far as MS4 is concerned, you would be, the engineering side is satisfied. The land disturbing activities could proceed if you're so inclined.
Okay, so thanks, Jeff.
Yeah. How deep do you have to go to remove people?
Something on the order of 5 to 6 feet will gets it out. I don't recall the exact dimension.
And that gets to what? Some surface.
Down to more stable sandy soil according to the borings. There's a detailed excavation plan as part of, and dewatering. They'll have to do, dewatering, but that's all part of the MS4 permit. You can't just send water over to the lake. Has to be treated, cleaned up. And
Where's the dewatering point?
the simple explanation is the residents, considering it as a rectangle, there will be a perimeter of dewatering well points put in. And towards the north will be the compressors and pumps necessary to draw the water out. And then to the east, towards the east is where they're contemplating there's a big bag that water will get pumped into to take all the sediments, clean the water before it goes out to the lake.
And
That's come back in the clear.
Use your microphone.
Sorry, I didn't realize that. Okay, so then it's pumped back in the clear after it's cleaned up.
Correct.
Okay.
Now, if you really think about it, it'll go around Clear Lake and come back in, through the peak. So it's a pretty impressive pumping operation to get it. But once they get it, it'll be fine. Once
That's the entire purpose behind MS4 is the enforcement of it is this type of activity used to take place, not just in residential, but in commercial construction. Where somebody wanted to go in and they wanted to water something, they just put the well points down, started the pump and pumped it to wherever they wanted to. City sewers, back into Lake Claire, so. But the MS4 requirements and what the plan that Jeff has given the notice of sufficiency for says that Jeff has reviewed it, and this plan says, yes, this meets the minimum requirements of IDEM for cleaning the water, let's say, and pumping it back in. But the reason that I didn't want to do this, because I just got started on this. I was just certified 2 months ago, so I wanted help, which is why we have that in our ordinances that we can go out and so Jeff's services are being paid for by the property owner. Anything else, Jeff? Thanks, Jeff. So the land disturbance permit was to excavate. The permit that they sent in months ago was to excavate. We've gotten a notice of sufficiency from Jeff. I have passed that information along to Reggie, who is the town of Long Beach. Hassan Associates is the town of Long Beach's town engineer, let's call him. Reggie is on the MS4 end, my boss on the MS4 end. So I have sent that information to Reggie. The publishing, as Jeff said, I'm assuming will take place fairly quickly. As soon as that comes back to us and the IDEM sends through their portal that information, we could ostensibly approve the permit. The only caution that I would have to the owners is approving the land disturbance permit does not mean that we're approving the actual building permit. So, that's a cost benefit situation, or as my daughter always says, is the squeeze word is the juice word to squeeze. So if we say, yeah, we can go out there and excavate and tear all the land up, and then we don't issue the building permit, so, I do want to talk to Amy Vanderstreet, who represents is the design engineer, I think. And find out, make sure that they understand the land disturbance permit doesn't automatically mean the building permit is coming. Amy, I guess you're on there. You want to speak to that?
Hi, Larry. Amy Vandestreek, yes, we do understand that the building permit would be issued later. And that we would like to have the land ordinance permit so we could begin earthwork with the knowledge that we're improving the land, and in anticipation of what is required for building permit, we're willing to take that step forward.
Okay, thanks, Amy. So as soon as that's published and we get the notice, or does the IDM, Jeff, notify us or you?
No, you don't actually have to wait for IDM. IDM will send the permit to the owner and their representatives, and they will forward that on to you. I think your role is, with respect to the ordinance and the IDM stuff, is just kind of, it'll kind of takes care of itself, for lack of a better way to say it.
Okay.
Is that a long process?
No, typically, we've seen them like 2 days. Well, you're MS4 now. And so you have reviewed plans, and we've sent and said, yeah, hey, these plans are good. And so that takes a lot of load off of IDM, having more eyes throughout the state looking at the plans.
So if this permit gets approved, the excavation, and ultimately the permit for the building isn't approved, and the building's never built, are we gonna end up with a peninsula with a pond in the middle of it?
Well, that's the issue here. As I mentioned, the land disturbance permit, and I want to make, and Amy has acknowledged the fact that if the land disturbance permit is issued, and they go through the expense of clearing the property and doing excavation, and if the building permit is not approved, that I just want to make sure that they understand that. And Amy has already said that she does understand that. So yes, Bob, I don't know what the next step of that would be. If the building doesn't get approved and they've dug a 30,000 square foot by 6 foot deep hole in that property, I don't know. I would have, I'm not confident enough to tell you what that next step is if that were to happen.
Do we have any responsibility to make sure that doesn't happen as the building commission, Chris?
Well, I think you have to follow the code. And it doesn't, as far as I have not to look into this issue, but as far as our discussions today, if they're checking the boxes and they qualify, you do take that risk if you put the caveat on there that if it doesn't get approved, they have to return it back to its original state. I don't think the code as written doesn't support that. So you are taking a risk, but you have they're in compliance with the things they need to do to qualify for their permit as well. I think one thing they have on this issue that supports is they otherwise, the building permits and they're the decision makers, and they went the BZA route and they weren't successful there. But otherwise they've generally shown that they're going to probably be in compliance to get their building permit too. So I think you're a little bit on safer ground that given who is building and what they're investing in here, that yes, you're taking a risk. Yes, you've been burned on some other things and trying to help some people out here. But I think that your risk is low that it's not going to happen.
You're saying we should trust that yellow bear.
I think the yellow bears probably prove themselves that they're trying to do things the right way every single way so far. It's my view that you're the decision maker. You have to hang your hat on that.
Can that requirement be part of issuing the land disturbing permit, that they fill the hole, assuming the project fails?
Sure.
Thank you.
Well, if Bob, if that's a concern, and it is a concern of mine, that, you know, ultimately, the permit, the building permit is not going to be approved today. There is not enough time and everybody's had to look through. It's a very complex project. So I would feel perfectly comfortable in saying that since Jeff has told us that it meets the MS4 requirements, that they have signed off on that as the town engineer. In turn, I would sign off on it, or not, I don't have to sign off on it, but as the MS4 coordinator, I would say it was a good idea for us to put the caveat in the permit that if in fact the building permit does not get issued, the site has to be returned to its current condition.
Or return to grade. I mean, is that?
Or return to
Yeah,
grade.
it can't be returned to how it is now, but return to grade is sufficient.
You're saying we can ask for that?
Nobody's objecting that you put that caveat on there, so it's not gonna hurt anything.
All right, I make a motion to approve the permit with that caveat.
Second,
Motion by Bob to approve the land disturbance permit, with the exception that if the building permit is not issued, that the land be returned to grade. Seconded by Joy. Any other discussion? All those in favor? Oh, roll call. Okay. Did I have to do something with Ken to make sure?
Yes.
Okay, Ken, you have to keep your video on there.
Yeah, can't you see me?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can turn it off when you're done.
Yeah, real quick.
I'll go through the roll call. You ready on it? I'll go through the roll call on this. So does everybody understand the motion?
yes,
Okay. Larry Wall, yes. Bob LeMay,
Yes.
John Coker,
Yes.
Ken Klausner,
Yes,
Joy Schmidt,
yes.
Pete Bivens. Yes. Joe's not here. Okay. We're all set. Thanks, Jeff. Thanks, Amy. 3007 Bayfield, we're still, Lou and I met with these people. I think this was up on the last meeting. We still have not received any new building permit or revised building permit so that they could move forward with the work that would be acceptable under our ordinances. 1514 Lakeshore Drive plan review. This was up at the last meeting. They did send the revised sets of drawings. They did send a site plan. I reviewed those. The proposed construction, this is on the lakeside. The proposed construction would increase volume in setbacks. I informed both the architect and the owner. The option is to either rework the drawings to conform to the ordinances, or if they wanted to proceed with what they've already provided with us, we would have to deny the permit, and then they could go to the BZA into a final decision. So we have not received anything back from that. The 2-car garage on the hillside lot, I don't think it has an address right now. We requested a site plan with setback and coverage information, and we have not received that. There's really nothing else we can do on that one. 3007 Moore Road. It came before us last month to rework the landscaping and parking areas. We requested a proper site plan and a meeting on site with Lou and I, so we can determine that. And I may have to talk with you, Chris. And I don't know that I should even bring it up. So it's a lot that was brought in under that annexation 10 years ago. And it's probably 80% coverage right now. And I don't know how we handle that. So maybe I can get with you later and figure out what.
Is there already a primary residence on this?
Yes.
I think it's gonna be grandfathered as it was. I mean, it's one of those gray area unique things, but it came in as it was.
Right.
But anything additional will be subject to what the zoning ordinance
Okay.
is on beaches.
So we just need a site plan or the proper site plan from them, and I think we can make a decision. Under new business, there was a note about 2711 about the stop work order status. I don't know where that's at. Do you have anything on that?
I don't have a stop recording on this. It may have been several years ago. Yeah, several years ago. They were thinking about like the BCA and done everything there.
Okay, so there's a permit that was already approved on this. Is this a new one?
Yeah, this is deck work. This is not, this was not, they were actually doing interior renovation a couple of years ago without a permit. We stopped it. They got a permit and now they're doing exterior deck work.
I must not have been able to find it. Is that it right there?
Yeah.
Let me take a look.
I went there today to see if there's anybody to talk to about that, and half the deck is in Lake Claire. So there's gonna be some rotting problems. It's actually gonna be decking.
Yeah, this is one that I reviewed, and the permit they're asking to rebuild their deck. They say it's gonna essentially remain the same. My concern is I don't know what they mean by essentially. I mean, it needs to be the same.
Yeah. All right. I must be thinking about something else. Sorry about that. So, pardon me?
Who owns Lake Claire?
I think the Lake Claire homeowners, so, or you live there, Hidden Shores homeowner association. Right. So they own it, but, I agree with that. So this permit could be approved, but we just need, just like I sent one out today, that we need a statement from the owner that says that they are not increasing the size of the deck. So I think we can approve it as long as we get that statement. Is everybody good with that?
Well, and if they want to change configuration, then we gotta look at setbacks. So, I mean, I think
Right.
it needs to be the same.
Right, but we need a statement from them, that we can approve the permit as long as we have a statement from them that, that it is the exact.
Have we measured and we know what the current?
Lou was just, Lou was there today.
Take photographs.
And would you make sure that they send us a statement and tell them that their permit is, okay? Sure.
But I still, what if this is extending into Lake Claire? Is that understood?
I don't know. I don't see.
Yeah, half of the deck, half of one of the decks goes into Lake Claire. And then they got a pier that goes out from that deck into Lake Claire.
I guess we do need a second.
Yeah.
And we also need to understand what can be allowed in St. Clair, Lake Claire. I mean, that's,
Remember the,
and it is NS4, when does NS4 get involved?
Rayla McFadden. So I'm not on that board, but my husband is. And before they bought the house, when they had they came out and did the site plan or the surveyor. And then they came to him and the board and said, part of the deck is in Lake Claire. And they're like, it's not a problem. So they have no issue with it. Is the deck rotted?
yeah.
Oh, okay. Because I don't remember. I mean, you can see it from the road.
Mhm.
Okay.
So I guess, so the lake is owned by the homeowners association.
Right.
So I
As far as
think the homeowner association needs to sign off.
And I'm sure they will. They
Yeah.
actually, they have a meeting. They have a meeting, Lake Claire. Okay, so we are in an HOA, which is Hidden Shores, but we are part of the master plan of Lake Claire. So that's everybody on Shorewood, on Tinkers, Hideaway, all of those, and part of Bracala, and Fairway, Duffy, Shorewood. So they have a meeting, August 8th, it's their yearly one. And I'm sure that could be brought up there. And I think Paul Applegate's the president of that. I'm not sure who's the president. I know there's a board. No, actually Pam Jasnewski, because Lake Claire includes the condos too. Any of the condos in the shores, the commons, and then the ones on Shorewood and the apartments. So those are all the voting members.
Okay, so, we can't issue a permit on property that is not owned by the people that are applying for the permit. So if the deck extends into the lake, they would have to have an approval from whoever owns the lake.
I think you have another gray area here. I think that you can, subject to, it's a simple email, you know. Inland Beach isn't the same because that is a homeowner association, but you know, ultimately they're representing, they don't have any encumbrances or things like that, or something that, you know, ties the land. I think that if you do the same thing, that you get written confirmation from them that it's approved, simple email from the president, that will be sufficient, and then whatever, you know, the normal things apply. And that's far applies, it applies, you know, it's.
But so,
He make it clear, ultimately dumps into Lake Michigan.
yes,
And I know, I'm not totally familiar, but I know the state of Indiana has certain ordinances and rules that apply to inland lakes, of which Lake Claire would be one. So we have to make sure we're not going to follow those things, and they have to do with access and what you can do on it, what you can't do on it.
well, what happens, Pete, in this instance, so from what our discussion so far, the deck, we need a statement from the owner that says the deck is not going to be increased. It's going to be the exact configuration, not similar, or whatever terminology they use. The second thing is we need a letter, email, whatever, from the Lake Claire Homeowners Association that they're accepting what the owner wants to do. The third thing is, Pete, that you're bringing up is that's floodplain it's a floodplain situation. So I don't have off the top of my head, I know there's most of our areas along the lakefront, Lake Michigan lakefront, the floodplain grade is 591, I think, if I remember right. So I can look, I'm not going to do it right now during the meeting, but I can look, and if the proposed construction is below the floodplain grade of Lake Claire, then it has to, the construction requires a floodplain permit and state. So I'll look into that and make sure that if that is the case, that it's below the, if it's cantilevered, it's different. But if it's into the area that is below the floodplain grade, then it has to conform to the floodplain construction. And that requires a floodplain permit, which is, you get that from the state. So I'll look into that. And I think those three items, we would need those three items before we could issue the permit.
So Claire, you have copies of these, whatever they are, what did you call them? So Lake Claire?
There's a Lake Claire Master Association and there's a Hidden Shores Homeowners Association. So the ground, which is called the Commons, which is only on Duffy and Fairway, if you picture that, Hidden Shores, that group pays for the mowing. So Hidden Shores is the one that wrote the letter before the, is it the Volgas? Is that the way you say their name? Volga.
Yeah.
Before they bought the house, the realtor came and they met as a group with the Hidden Shores. And there is an email or a letter that Marie Price, who's the president of Hidden Shores, that's the common area, that's where their deck is. And I don't think it's on there very much. And they said, no, it's not an issue. So
Okay,
there is
so
an email or a letter. I'll ask my husband to look for it.
Yeah, we would need a copy of that, and then I'll look into whether or not it's in the floodplain and what their construction is.
So don't we need a site plan too? I mean, because nothing on their permit application suggests that this deck extended into the lake. That's news to me after looking at their permit.
Yeah, it's really marginal. I mean, there's a bunch of pond scum and all that right up next to the little bitty deck. It's right on the edge of the lake. You could probably argue either way if it's in the lake or not in the lake.
I don't know, there's just seems, there's something missing here. I get it. I never realized that there was a Lake Claire oversight.
I looked at it when we got the permit. So,
Didn't do that document or whatever.
no, I just went on Beacon, punched in and it said it was owned by I don't know if it's Lake Claire or Hidden Shores or whatever. So that's what what's the address?
2711
What street?
Duffy.
Everything, I'll give you the flood plan stuff. Yeah, or issue the construction bonds. Yeah, that's the it's not. Okay, so here's the house where the orange pin is. That's the property. All this is the FEMA floodplain map. So this white line is the floodplain barrier. You can see here where my cursor is moving around. That's the shoreline. We're close to it. There's obviously trees hanging over it. So I'll have to look and see what the floodplain rate is for this particular spot. And then we'll need to determine if that construction is in the floodplain. If it is, and it's above the floodplain grade, we can approve it without a floodplain permit. If part of it is in the floodplain, then they'll need a floodplain permit. And I'm not going to do that all during the meeting, so I'll do that. I'll get back to everybody.
But the pilots for that deck are gonna have to almost by definition be down in floodplain.
That's what I want to go look at. And if that's the case, then they have to conform to floodplain ordinance, which floodplain rules, which, they have a breakaway, there's certain regulations that they would have to adhere to. Okay? Everybody all right with that? All right. Number 20, 1911 Lakeshore Drive. Landscaping and the addition of a golf cart pad. We've requested a site plan so that we can see width setbacks and lot coverage. Make sure that the golf cart pad doesn't exceed coverage limits and or encroaching the setbacks.
Okay, so, we got coverage numbers. I don't know, we got coverage numbers on 1911, Lake Shore, didn't we?
I don't know.
I got them somewhere, and they're over 40%. So that does not allow them to put in a new pad or a golf cart. But where they got the golf cart located right now, it's kind of on the grass, and I suggested that since they can't get coverage or go to the BZA to get coverage added, to put mulch on it. Put what? Mulch. So that if they mulch this little pad, it's better than sitting in the grass and mud.
I guess what they decide to do is up to them, but in the meantime,
Right, they have to resubmit.
we need to deny that.
Right, if they're, we need a site plan, and if they don't want to do the golf cart and they're just removing, replacing what is there, then we can approve it, but they have to resubmit their permit, you know, so that it's proper. Make sense to everybody?
Yes.
Okay, 2006 Somerset. This has been going on for several months. Lou and I had a couple of meetings with the owners. They obtained one septic permit, but the problem with that was it required excavation in a steep slope part of the lot, which would require adherence to the steep slope ordinance. So we met with the contractor on site, and they have moved the house to the rear of the property or northward, and they modified the plans and went to Laporte with a proposed septic system on the front or Somerset side. And they have told us that Laporte has approved it, so we are awaiting a proper site plan. They sent us the septic permit site plan, but that doesn't have the setbacks and the coverage numbers on it. So we are awaiting that, and once we get that, they can move forward.
Yeah, they're not, actually, they're not even changing the plan of the house. That was moving the entire plan back a few feet, I guess. I'm not sure how far. Nonetheless, I've requested a plan, and the Lake County septic permit.
Laporte County.
Oh, yeah, what is that?
Lake.
Oh, jeez.
You live, no, you got Porter County.
Yeah.
I don't know where you got it. Okay, so as soon as we get that, we'll be in good shape. Number 22, 26, 22 Oriole Trail. We received lot coverage calculations on 7/12. Your coverage is 17.7%. Bob, you brought up a point this morning about impervious coverage, and I went by and looked at it. I will get with, actually, I think he might be on here.
Yes.
I don't know how to get this up there. Maybe not. Mr. Warnke, are you on here? He must have left. So what I'll do is I went over there, and there are indeed some areas that were not calculated. As you mentioned, Bob, I will get with the owner and the pool contractor, and we'll make sure they include those and get the proper documentation back to us.
Yeah,
Okay.
we're pristine. We are on right now. We're in on a meeting. Can you hear us?
I heard you, but I didn't understand what you said.
Yeah, this is Christine Pools. I'm Glenn, and we're here trying to just help along with some of the issues that you might have there.
If you could move a little further away from the microphone. Sounds like you might be a little close.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, a lot of the that old pond and creeks, concrete creek that they have, all that's gonna be coming out. And when we dig the pool, we're gonna remove all the concrete, take it away. And then when we dig the pool, the excavation from the pool will be able to fill all those, that old little creek that looks like it probably never worked. It doesn't hold water.
Okay, yeah, Lou and I will get together and we'll have to meet with you and or the homeowners and just walk through and make sure that we understand exactly what you're doing. The site plan wasn't didn't have a lot of information on it. So when I went by and looked at it, there's information on the site plan, or there's existing lot conditions that are not on the site plan. We just want to go over those, make sure that they're included in the calculations and make sure we're not in trouble anywhere.
Okay, yeah, that'd be fine. We're available whenever it's convenient for everybody.
Right, we'll have to set up something next week.
Larry, can you have his name and address?
Would you, whoever that was speaking, would you tell us what your name is and what your capacity?
Yeah, I'm Glenn Fadden with Pristine Pools. We're the swimming pool contractor they want to use.
Got it. Okay, we got it. Thanks. Any other discussion on that one? No? Anything else?
Yeah, a couple other issues.
Okay, Bob.
First off, there was an email from Mr. Milo, that's the old Staples, but it was famous, okay. And he wanted to be sure that the building commission was okay with the fines that he paid and that he could proceed with them. Good with what he's paid. It looks like it's $800 according, or no, it's $1,000 for no building permit. Are we, the building commission, okay with what he's paid? Do we know?
Which contractor is this?
This is about self-construction.
Yeah, just by way of memory, that this was an issue where I think they started a little bit of work, or they removed some equipment. There was some issue. My understanding and recollection, you may have a different one, is that they immediately corrected the issue, put their equipment back on, came before you got permit. And one of the issues that they weren't sure is how much do we owe? And so they ultimately went and paid.
Actually, they paid $800, fine is $1,000.
Because I think it might have been for each. And again, this is recollection. My understanding is they fixed it and it was a couple of days worth of issue there. So the rest is your decision. It's probably unusual that he's asking because nobody's been beating down his door, but I understand that he would like some closure versus somebody, coming 18 months later and saying, hey, you owe us a couple more bucks. So that's what the determination and question has been. And I thought we addressed it long ago with them to say, pay your fines. And they did. Osaka was very responsive and immediately came in, but they were kind of swimming in the dark to know exactly what the final fine amount was.
According to the building commission citations 2023, the fine is $500 for each violation. It says here they paid $400 for each. So I guess my thought, if they want to put it to bed, they owe us $200.
I would have to recuse you guys. I want to make sure you guys understand.
Lakeshore Drive.
I have to recuse myself from that, so you guys have to.
Yeah, and so, Larry recused himself all along. I believe this is one of those where we had an issue with regard, kind of catapulted why we changed and reconciled all the fine amounts. So my opinion is that you should agree that they did pay. I think that what was cited was the wrong amount because we had recently changed something for a contractor licensing, and that's what the confusion was. I believe that they've paid. My understanding was that they corrected it right away, unless Lou or somebody else says something different. So my opinion that it unlike some of these, that it was corrected quickly and that they did pay the right amount and both parties paid.
Okay, so I'll make a motion to close the matter.
I'll second.
All right, so we need a roll call vote. Larry, you're recused. I'm in favor. John Coker. Ken Klossner. Ken Klossner.
Yes. Did you copy that? Did you guys hear that?
Anybody in the meeting can hear Ken and I. We cannot hear a thing that's going on in this meeting right now. All we see is Larry shared screen, which he should probably take down. Could you please troubleshoot the problem because we cannot hear a thing?
I agree. You guys are intermittent.
Well, I think it's just you and me, Ken. I don't see anything other than this thing on the screen.
Yeah, I got them up on full screen, but I can't hear them.
Yeah, I'm with you guys. This is Tim Perry. I can hear you guys, but that's it.
It's almost like we've lost the meeting for some. Let me send Mark a text or something. Hey, Larry, can you hear me? Larry, wave your hand if you can hear me. So we can't hear a darn thing that's being said in your meeting right now. You cut out. I think the participants can hear each other, but whatever is being said in your meeting is not being broadcast.
It sounded recording and then it kicked back and started.
Can you hear us
Okay.
now?
You're back. I don't know what happened there.
Okay,
Because they were muted.
thank you. Thanks, Renee.
So basically, a lot more work was done than what was permitted. And I think we just heard from Lou that no inspection was ever called for by the homeowner.
I was gonna look into it, late last week, and that's when I heard that the property had been sold.
Well, so
Have we issued a certificate of occupancy?
No,
No,
Okay. That's,
it should have been. I mean, you know, I'm saying that
So
the house was not occupied and major construction.
Let me work with Lou and see. I mean, you have an issue with the title passing, it may be an issue between the seller and the buyer after that, if there's no certificate of occupancy, but let me look into it and work with Lou and then we'll report back to you.
yeah, I think let's do this sooner rather than later too, because the former owner of this property, maybe the present owner, I don't know, has been a habitual violator. Mary McFadden suggested to me that our permit fees should be looked at. Our permit fees now are sort of a percentage of what amount of work you want to do, but there's grades depending on how much you're spending. Would it be easier rather than have us have grades to just say it's, what was it, 10%? What is it now, 10?
1% over $50,000.
Yeah, how about make it to 1% of any project over, what's that minimum?
500.
Over 500? So
We could,
was that too difficult? I don't know.
I would probably ask Chris and you guys what you think. We have, our fine, or our fee structure is, a land disturbance is X dollars. A window permit is a flat fee. If you're spending $75,000 on windows, it's still $100. If, yeah, I mean, I don't even know, I can't remember all of them. So I think what you're suggesting, Bob, is we do away with all that and say over $500 is 1%. Is that what you're suggesting?
Does that kind of get everything you were kind
Actually, the contractor who's registered said to me, because he had the itemized bill, and he said, we had backsplash put in. And he said it went a little over 5,000 because they had to do some they had to fix the countertop, it had fallen. And he said, so because it went just a little bit over 5,000, it went from $50 to $250 for the permit. So he said, I think that's a little steep. So that's just why I said that to him.
Yeah, well, I think it'd be
I
fair.
don't think it's cheap.
I just think it's unfair that somebody.
You don't have to pay.
At least I paid, at least I applied for a permit.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, right.
and I displayed the building. By the way, that's the other thing, and I know it's not public comment. So when I'm driving around, if I don't see a building permit, I call in.
Right.
I displayed mine,
Yeah.
You're supposed to.
yeah, in the front window.
Right. You're supposed to.
Yeah.
Thanks, Mary Lou.
Yeah, one suggestion might be while you're doing this and you're implementing this software is a good time. I mean, maybe it's get what others, what's Beverly Shores doing, what are other communities that are similarly situated, and come back, because obviously part of the point, just like with fines and those kinds of things, is it's not to have the town have a windfall or income off of these, but you also want to counter that with the amount of work. You guys do put in a lot of work and whatever those expenses, but also being fair. There's quite a lot of activity going on. It's fair, like Mary Lou's happened to be, it's that gray area of, how many times did that happen? I don't know, but that is a significant jump for being a buck over, for instance. So.
Yeah, I think what we did years ago, when I first got involved in this, that's exactly what we did. We went to, I don't know, you were, I think when we redid it, we went to probably 15 communities of similar size to us, and it included Michigan City, LaPorte, some other areas. And we just looked at their fee structure, and we based ours on, so that we were similar to theirs. And we can do the same thing before the software would be a perfect time to do it, so that we could do that. It would be simpler to just be a percentage of the job. But one of the problems with that is, if you have a job that somebody says, and we have to at some point in time, and I know Joe's not here, but Joe would always make the point, well, I don't think that this is right, or I don't think that this is the right amount, or this work is more than what they're saying it is. That's true. That's the nature of the beast. I mean, and taking my town hat off and my business hat on, we work from Wisconsin all the way up into by St. Joe, and every community is different. And most communities that want to get away from that type of thing use some type of square foot. There's job classifications, and then they say, if you're going to do X number of square foot, that's what we're basing our permit fee on. So why don't we do that? Why don't we look at what all the other areas are, and then try to come up with something that, does it have to go to the APC, or how does that work?
Not sure where those are in code. I don't think that is an APC thing, but we'll check out if it does, it does. But I think that reviewing them for implementation when we're doing the software makes sense for sure.
Yes. Anything else?
Permit fees,
I have them towns that we work in, and I just call surrounding towns and they'll send them right to you. And, I mean, a lot of it is available online, just like we will get soon. So we'll look into that. And that's all I've got. Pete? Your? Jen? Are you sure? Yes. I'm really sure. Move. That should be followed. Okay.
And I'll move to adjourn.
The public comment.
Carol Warming, son, we were so slave for the divine line. Back again.
Hold on. Carol, push that button. Yeah, there it is. It's red.
Carol Tormey, 1706 Lakeshore Drive. I'm back again. I just want to ask, I understand, I think I understand it's my right to have a hearing on this ticket. And as I tried to explain the last time I spoke to the council, this is a crazy ticket. It says you'll take my driver's license away from me, but it doesn't give me any way to appeal this to. And I mean, honestly, I've done everything I could think of to do. And I just need to know how I can get a hearing, what things should be.
Just to clarify, and I think it has been communicated in writing with that appeals process, whether that's forwarded or not. Can't give you legal advice because I'm not your attorney.
I understand.
Just giving you that caveat. I think some of the confusion here is it looks like you have a police department ticket.
That's what I tried to
versus-
explain.
And again, maybe that's a form thing that well taken and they look because over the last year, the building commission has redone their tickets and there are court dates and that's a different matter. That's an enforcement issue that if the commission or the town decides to have enforcement action for collection. But your process, if you want to appeal that ticket, and there are timing elements, so that I can't advise you on whether you're past those elements, time, whether the deadlines.
Well, according to this ticket, I'm already at $61,000.
I'm not, that part isn't merit or not merit, but anything that you want to appeal from the building commission, which any fine that falls under enforcement there, it goes before the BZA, and there's a process there. So I would point you to the town code, and I would point you to, I believe there's a link to, and it's the packet of BZA info, and that has procedures in there.
And then just as a resident, I just want to say that when you're talking about the fees for building permits, I don't know, I think it's good for the good of the town that we keep our houses improved and well maintained. And why don't, it seems like you can be fair in charging for building permits. You certainly want to cover the whatever it costs you to send out the inspectors and the commissioners. But I think that you'd also want to find a way to encourage people to comply and to encourage people to be responsible homeowners. And that's it. Thank you.
Thanks, Carol. Any other public comment? John, you want to hang on for one? No. Is it playing? Is that a motion to adjourn? Are you kidding us? Are you kidding us? Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Make the move.
Pete, is that the second, Pete?
Second.
All those in favor? Those names, thank you, everyone who's been down.